Hey, ho there. This is James coming in with another Rocket Punch Radio Drive Time Hour coming at you from sunny St. Louis. I hope you're ready for more bumper-to-bumper traffic and bump and grind, because here's Samantha coming at you with the traffic. Samantha, how's it looking out there?
Bad. Everything's terrible.
That's it? That's all you got?
Yeah, it's a firestorm.
All right, well, that was a riveting report. And now here's Nate with the news.
Things are looking good on my end, but I'm also not in St. Louis, so...
Sorry, I didn't really think this intro out.
Clearly.
I guess.
Yeah. I just wanted to do a silly voice. Hi there.
And that's the secret to every one of James's intros.
Mission accomplished.
Every single one of them. Every single one of them.
I just wanted to do a silly
A
voice.
silly voice. The gaming community has been divided at the best of times, but every now and then, for one bright, shining moment, they declare in one voice, "We will not play that game, it blows!" We here at Rocket Punch Radio occasionally buck the herd mentality. With that in mind, and with the desire to foster a little bit of positivity in this dark political deathscape that we have, these are the games that we loved that the rest of the gaming community didn't necessarily.
Yeah. In an effort to be less divisive, we're going to definitely be divisive.
It's not our fault if everyone else is wrong.
Our opinions shall not be changed in light of facts.
It's an effort to shed a little bit of positivity.
And hopefully levity on these silly games that we can acknowledge the faults of, even though we like them.
Who would like to go first?
I don't know.
I think Samantha should go first because she had trouble picking some.
Oh, yes. Yes, let's throw Samantha under the bus.
Okay, well, as we all know, I only like very popular things. I'm very much with every crowd.
You say that as if that's already been established, but you seem to have only come to that realization within the last 48 hours or so.
Yeah, well, okay. Let's talk about one that maybe is like it has, according to Metacritic, mixed or average reviews. That's the best I could do on this list. It was pretty tough. But I think it's one that is impenetrable by most people. It's a kind of game that a lot of people would write off as being, like, actually cut rate and terrible if they didn't have sort of a weird appreciation for the kinds of things it was going for, and a willingness to look past the shitty things that it has. Yeah. Anyway, we're going to talk about Deadly Premonition.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, the Metacritic on that one is definitely mixed, isn't it?
Yeah, this has a 68% on Metacritic, which is generally favorable for users as well. But I think that this is one of those games that, like, you only have to see a couple screenshots or watch a couple of in-game cutscenes to write this off as just, like, a shovelware kind of trash. And especially in the time frame that it came out, it was, generally speaking, it looked like a discount game. Just based on the dumb name. Deadly Premonition is a stupid name. And just the general weirdness, it all felt a lot like those early PS1 games where the translations for everything was really, really bad. So,
While I miss that era, I will say I stopped playing after about 20 minutes.
Yeah, which is totally fair. A lot of people didn't like it. So some highlights from Metacritic is this game is by far the worst game I have ever played. Terrible controls, story, and everything imaginable. Why did the developers bother? All totally fair criticisms. I'm not going to argue with any of them. The controls are a mess. The graphics are nothing to look at. But the writing in the game is so weird and so, like, it has its own mythology that it adheres to very, very tightly. Like, I think, I have often compared it to, like David Lynch, especially Twin Peaks. And one of the hallmarks of his stuff is that it's sometimes it's weird and impenetrable, and it doesn't make sense in like an actual Earth logic way, but it definitely makes sense within its own context. And for a game that was written in Japanese and then translated into English, I feel like at every step of the process, they did their very best to keep that tightly knit lore in place. And I can really appreciate the artistry in that. That
Even
said,
up to and including when the voice audio would start changing gain.
oh yeah, it was all a mess, but it was all on purpose. I honestly believe that those weird little things, because that is a thing that happens in the game. Sometimes the sound of the people talking is nearly drowned out by the music. And that's actually a pretty David Lynch thing to do. The point of that is that you're trying to listen to something amidst a cacophony. It's supposed to give you that like dreamlike feeling of not being able to tune directly in, like you're distracted from what's actually going on. I honestly think it's deliberate. Now, I might be giving the developers too much credit, but this is this Swery? Is that right?
Yeah, Swery. And
yeah.
Evidently he is a crazy man. But
He's a crazy man with a vision, and I honestly believe that the game was created to his vision. It's weird. It's weird, and I don't know if I could recommend it, but I thoroughly enjoyed it, so...
well, certainly many people who enjoyed Twin Peaks got deep into this game.
Well, to be fair, I didn't watch Twin Peaks until after we played this game. And we watched Twin Peaks as a direct result of this game because we were interested in the source material for how wackadoo this thing was. So I can credit that as being an entry point for me. And yeah, it's a mess, but it's one of those things that very, very divisive, I think, as far as like whether or not you're going to like it. And I think that anyone who doesn't like it, who sees screenshots from it or watches any kind of like footage from it and is like, well, that's not for me, totally get it, totally understand. It was weird as hell. And honestly, when John started playing it at first, I didn't think it was for me, but it became weirdly engrossing. At first it was, what weird shit is this game gonna do next? Like, why are these decisions being made this way? And then eventually you sort of, it's like learning a new language. I learned the language of the game and then got really engrossed in the weird story that it was trying to tell. So,
okay.
I don't know. I feel like that's a softball because I think a lot of people appreciate Deadly Premonition, but this was a harder topic to come up with than I expected. What did you guys?
Well, being positive is very difficult.
What did you guys come up with?
Well, the first game that I had on my list, this is the very last game that I ever picked up on release night and then called off work for the next day. I had that day off planned weeks in advance. That game is Mass Effect 3. I had the Mass Effect trilogy still stands out as one of my favorite parts of the last generation of consoles.
Ditto.
And yeah, as such, I was incredibly excited to be able to go and plow deep into that one. I ended up playing, I think I got through the first 20 hours of what ended up being a 25-hour playthrough just in that first sitting. Like, I sat my ass down, and I didn't get up until it was lunchtime, and then I sat my ass down again and played until, bedtime. That game, well, let's be honest, there's a little bit of a controversy surrounding that game. A lot of people like to cite a little thing called the ending. Understandably frustrating, but... honestly, it didn't get to me that much. I think, honestly, it's a matter of your perspective in terms of what you're calling the ending, because if you frame it a certain way, the whole game is the ending for the trilogy. And in that sense, many of the claims that BioWare made going into this project are actually true. Decisions that you made in the first two games carrying through. There was definitely some stuff that was disappointing. Pick a color for your ending being one of those things. Certainly a couple of the other things, for instance, if you chose not to revive or, help certain characters survive, then the game just filled them in with a generic replacement. There was a multi-meal Krogan king and etc. for any instances where you didn't allow someone to live.
The Rachni Queen coming back was the big one for me.
Yeah, so, obviously the game was not without its problems, but still, it was a 20-hour romp through a universe that I'd come to love, saying goodbye to characters that I had come to love, and even by the ending with Buzz Aldrin telling the story to his space grandkid in the far-off distant future about the legend of the shepherd. That was all really touching. I really, I felt it was a good end cap to that game. Now, it is interesting to bring up the Metacritic. The Metacritic came out at 90. Generally speaking, the press did like this game. User score, 5.5. People just didn't.
Is that out of 10?
Out of 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was vicious. This is one of those games where I tend to get irate about certain things, such as consumer entitlement. I remember getting into a lot of fights. Nate witnessed many of these online with people regarding petitions that were being signed to force the game's creators to come up with a better ending. Look, you paid $60 for it, but that doesn't entitle you to get everything that you'd hoped it would be. Death threats, petitions, forcing the artist to change his work to suit your views is not how art works. I'm sorry. Even commercial art, that's just not how it works.
And then they released the free DLC anyways.
Yeah. That was the other thing that was infuriating, is that they fucking caved.
As luck would have it, that DLC actually basically addressed all of the issues I had. Mm-hmm. Just because I didn't think the ending. I like long cutscenes at the end where it explains what happened to the characters and everything. And I thought the DLC did a great job of fixing some of the things they left more open. I also didn't sign one of those petitions. The only way those
cutscenes could have been improved is if they were playing "Don't You Forget About Me" over top of them. So Nate, what about you?
So I have two games I'm going to talk about. The first one being Lord of the Rings Conquest.
Oh, was this the Battlefield game?
It was. So it was basically it was a Lord of the Rings Battlefield game. It came out for the PS3 the PS3 and the Xbox 360. And so the Xbox 360 all of its Metacritic scores are in the 50s. The 360 version has a score of 55. So me and my brother at the time, this game came out in, early 2009. So me and my brother at the time, and the years leading up to this, we'd been really big fans of Battlefront, which is the Star Wars Battlefield, I guess. So we had been really big fans of Battlefront, and so this game was marketed as a Battlefront style Lord of the Rings game. And so me and my brother, we rented this one weekend, and we could playing through the game, we could tell it wasn't high quality, but it just it wasn't necessarily as fun as Battlefront. It wasn't as well made as Battlefront was, but we had a blast playing it co-op together.
Battlefront was hard to beat. This one looked like it could have been really cool. I wanted to get into it.
Yeah, so we played through it, and then I think it was you unlock the evil campaign once you play through the good campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can and so there were, just like in Battlefront, there's different classes, except in this case they were like archers and warriors and rogues. And so you had this so if you were playing as the orcs, you had a rogue who was basically a goblin with who was dual wielding daggers. And he could backstab people, and the backstab was he would get behind people, kick their legs out from under them, they'd go up in the air, and then he'd stab his daggers into their chest as they fell. And you could do this to hobbits. So there's legit a level where you are burning the Shire.
Look, the little bastards had it coming.
Yeah, so it was just it was absolutely ridiculous. And like running around doing this to hobbits, and it was just so much fun. And it's a game that I still talk about as it wasn't I could see the quality of the game wasn't great, but at the same time I had so much fun playing it. So me and my brother still to this day we talk about, even if the game wasn't good, we had so much fun playing it together. Just making fun of the game at the same time we were burning the Shire.
I had, kind of similar experiences with Lord of the Rings: The Third Age, which was kind of a bad Final Fantasy X knockoff with a Lord of the Rings skin on it. It was the same battle system straight up, but unlike Final Fantasy X, it allowed multiplayer. You could play 2 players, and each person would control 2 members of the party. And I ended up, friends in college, we would come over and we would try to work through this game together, and I ended up having a really good time with
so
that.
My brother and I we have a currently going playthrough of that game.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, on his
How are you liking it?
On his PS2.
Yeah, are you liking it?
Oh yeah, it's really fun. Every time we're both home, we try to play try to at least get through a few levels.
Cool. All right.
My next game is a game, again, that I acknowledge is probably not good, but I think, Nate, it's the same kind of situation that you had with the Lord of the Rings game. It's a game that I've played a lot with my husband, and the Metacritic scores are usually pretty low. They never really break 70. And my, as James Patrick's wife told me today, C's get degrees, but if you don't break 70, you're still not gonna pass. I'm talking about the Earth Defense Force games.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys sure do love those, don't you?
The basic premise of Earth Defense Force, if you've never played them before, is shoot bugs to death forever. And blow up buildings to save Japan. These games are dumb as hell. I don't even know, they're either third person, but you can zoom into first person, action games where you literally mow down scores of aliens who take the form of various bugs, ants and spiders and bees and you name it. And then occasionally giant robots come, and then you get to shoot giant robots. I have wasted a lot of hours of my life on these games. Have either one of you played any of these?
No, I've watched some streams of them being played, though.
Yeah. And I want to say thank you for liking these games. I bounced off them real hard. And John kept giving me puppy eyes to get me to play him with him, and I'm like, no, I just don't like this game. And now that you have liked them, he doesn't ask me anymore.
Well, okay.
And I feel bad telling him no, but their game is so bad.
Okay, here's the thing about Earth Defense Force. Every single game is exactly the same. In fact, Earth Defense Force, the most recent one that came out, which has a great name. It's Earth Defense Force 4.1, The Shadow of New Despair. It's exactly the same as the last one that they put out, Earth Defense Force 4. And we bought both of them. And we played through both of them. From front to back. Bless you. These games are stupid. They are repetitive, but they are also really fun. It's just really fun to, like, shoot a rocket launcher at giant robots
Jesus,
until
this
they
game
die.
is so bad I'm allergic to it.
They're so stupid. And it's what's funny about it is that John gets really uncomfortable about the spiders in this game. Because they're extremely realistic, I would say.
What,
But,
really?
Yeah. Especially in the
I-
newer ones. They're
I
very
had no
realistic.
idea he had a thing about spiders.
Yeah, he's not a fan. He gets squeamish about them, but he does like blowing them up with a rocket launcher, which I totally
This is intriguing
understand.
information. I could use this to my advantage.
Don't use that. You don't need leverage over John.
You're right.
But yeah, these games are dumb, but it's relaxing, and it's to play them for some reason. It's that fake intensity that is very cathartic. I think when you get done, you feel like, oh man, we really accomplished something here.
So are they actually difficult?
They can be. I mean, this is the type of game that has like difficulty that ranges from like beginner to, you know, ultra difficult. There's like 7 difficulty settings.
Oh, wow.
So you kind of have to work up, and I feel like we're probably on like hard difficulty, which is like 2 from the most difficult is where we play usually. You get better loot if you play higher levels. And that's the other thing, is that you just get copious amounts of loot, but it's randomized. So you might get the same gun that you've had 30 times before. There are really stupid guns in this game. They're like chain lasers and rocket launchers, and like there's a character who it's a whole battalion of girls who wear basically like, well, basically they have Mercy from Overwatch costumes, only they're bikinis. And they fly around, and they're more about speed than they. It's so stupid, guys. But I love these games. They're bad. Oh, one thing about these games that since my trip to Japan, I really appreciated. It was something that John and I played when we got home from Japan, and obviously the game's set in Japan. When you walk around the city, if you haven't blown up all of the buildings with your rocket launcher, which is a thing you can definitely do, you can walk around the city and like look inside the windows of the shops and apartment buildings, and they're all rendered inside.
What?
Are there people?
No,
But the game is literally spawned from a series of bargain games.
Yes, but
Like,
they're-
literally, these were budget titles in Japan.
yeah, but then like the interiors of the buildings are like lovingly created to be like, if you look inside a bakery, it's gonna have all the bakery stuff inside and like signage and stuff. And if
Wow.
you look inside like a little kitschy shop or a shrine or whatever, it's all there. And I loved that. I loved like walking around when there's like one ant hanging around somewhere, you're trying to find it. I love walking around the city and just like peeking into all the buildings. It was like bizarrely nostalgic for me. That's in the most recent iteration of this game.
Is it
They're not-
accurate to Tokyo?
I mean, the cities, no, not necessarily, but the buildings and the way that they're designed and stuff like that are.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it's not like street perfect. It's not like Watch Dogs or something, but it is, you know, it's clear that the way this was definitely designed by a Japanese designer who's familiar with what the inside of Japanese buildings looks like. And it was just cool. That was a little Easter egg that we found, and I'm like, oh, I want to walk in these side streets again. This is great. So yeah, these games are silly, but I have a lot of like fond memories of playing them, and because James won't, So I play
Yeah.
them with John.
Yeah, you get to play them with your husband because I do not.
There's a button now where, like, you have, like, military dudes, like, the other Earth Defense Force soldiers who are with you, and there's a button now where you can make them sing little chants and songs.
Oh my god.
About the EDF.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, I know in the background they'll go, EDF! EDF!
Yeah. And so John will start the song, and then John and I will sing along with the chants.
Wow.
Well, you're in deep.
It's so stupid. I love it.
You guys have a
one-
history of playing vaguely bad games together, though. I know you went through both of the Heroes of EverQuest, Heroes of Newerth games, didn't you?
No, we never really did.
Do not speak ill of those games, James.
Look, I like those games, but they're not good games.
We didn't really play the Champions of Newerth games. We played the Dark Alliance games, the
Baldur's Gate, right?
Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance games, yes. And we played both of those several times. That was actually the other game that I was going to talk about. I really like those games. It's like D&D. You get to play a character, and they're sassy, and you have adventures and kill rats. Shut up, James. Those are good. You suck.
I'm not saying those ones aren't. I'm just saying the Champions of Newerth ones are questionable.
Those are perfectly
It's-
serviceable
okay,
dungeon
it's-
crawlers.
Serviceable is the word for it. Serviceable. It's the same engine, but the game isn't put together with the same care.
Well, Nate, did you ever play the Baldur's Gate games?
I never played the Baldur's Gate ones, but again, me and my brother, we played Champions of Newerth, specifically the second one.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think we ever beat it. I know my brother's beaten it. I don't think we ever beat it together because I don't think his disc works anymore.
Ah.
Yeah.
I think, well, Nate, I don't know how easy they are to get a hold of, but the Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance games are that exact same thing. And they're super fun now that you're playing Pathfinder. That would be pretty fun for you to go through, I think. Especially the second one is a really, like, cool D&D campaign story that's just really fun to play through.
They play more like Diablo, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they're very much Diablo-likes. In fact, they basically ended up establishing the control scheme that Diablo would end up using in the future with Diablo 3 when they moved to the console.
Oh, wow.
It's the same control scheme that Torchlight used when it moved to the 360 as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like those dungeon crawlers. They're fun to play with a group. We played
I
those...
like them when you don't play them point and click.
I don't mind point and click. I don't mind the that mechanic, but I prefer it with a controller. I remember with the first Champions of Newerth game having 4 people. I think it was you, James, and your wife, and John and I playing on a multi-tap on the PS2 together.
Yep, sitting in my wife's basement back when she still lived with her parents.
Yep. Those were good times.
Yeah.
But it was annoying. It's like that was when we established that Jen is a major loot whore.
Yeah, she was stealing everything from everyone.
Every loot, all the loot, every time. A tradition that continues to this day.
Yeah, she's terrible. She's awful.
That's
She's
what
the worst.
happens when you play those games co-op and all the loot is shared on the screen.
Yep, that is what happens. Thank God Borderlands doesn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things about Torchlight. I always felt really uncomfortable when I first started playing it because I was like, oh, can I pick this up? Should I, like, check with everybody? And there's like, you get your own instance loot. And I was like, yay!
Yep.
So I ran back through the dungeon picking up gold.
Yeah, Diablo 3 does the same thing.
Yeah.
I know Diablo 3 does it, and then I don't know how they do it on the console.
It's assigned loot still, even on the console when you're doing it couch co-op. I ran through Diablo 3 and its expansion on the PS4, I think 2.5 years ago, with Samantha's little brother, and we had a really good time with it. We'd get together once a week, crack open a beer, and play dungeon crawlers for a couple hours.
Nice.
I was not invited to this party, and I'm still slightly bitter.
Yeah, well...
That's
you
quite
know
a
what
noise.
you did.
Well, have you ever played Hammerwatch, Nate? I don't know if you're still into dungeon crawlers, but that might be a one that you can pick up with your brother. The second one.
No, it sounds familiar.
They made a second Hammerwatch?
Yes, they did, and evidently they fixed the party system. Because in the first Hammerwatch was great. It's a, kind of a Diablo clone. It's got really simple graphics. It's fun. But the matchmaking mechanic was trash, and it worked like 1 out of 10 times. But the second one, they evidently very, very much improved that. So I haven't gotten a chance to pick it up yet, but Kurt and I used to play the first one together from I'm the Host. So I want to get the second one so that we can play it together. You might reach out to your bro and see if he wants to do that, because those games are fun to play in a group. They're fun to play with a buddy.
Is that on the PC? I think I've seen it before.
Yeah, it's a Steam game.
Okay.
Yep, and the first one was really fun, but it's the matchmaking was so bad that it basically made it unplayable. It was remarkably bad. Like, you had to.
I remember trying to get into a game with you a couple times. I'm kind of glad that I only spent a couple bucks on it.
Yeah, you had to enter your host's IP address, but it wouldn't always recognize it.
Geez.
Yeah, and then if there, of course, since it's hosted locally, if there was any kind of interruption, and there always was, because it also had to relay through, and I don't know, it was a mess. It was very, very bad.
Yeah.
So,
not a good way to go.
No, it was unfortunate, but the game was really fun, so I'm looking forward to the second one. That came out last year, I think. So, the second one did. We got off track.
I completely missed out. I completely missed out on that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, but I'm looking for it on a Steam sale. I wasn't able to do anything on this most recent Steam sale, so
yeah,
we'll see what happens. Anyway,
well, the next one for me was a little game by a man you might have heard of him by the name of Tim Schafer. He does video games from time to time, and one of these video games that he did was a little project with a celebrity, you might have heard of him, by the name of Jack Black, who does music. Music is his thing. He sings and plays guitar. The name of this game is Brutal Legend. You might have heard of it. It came out, when did this game come out? Like 09, 08?
yeah.
And people were super, super stoked for this game until they got about 5 hours in and discovered it's an RTS.
Yeah.
And then the whole internet bounced off of it. Now, the good news is that at this point, apparently its Metacritic score has recovered. Well, the reviewers who were looking at the game already liked it. It was rated at an 80. And it was near to that equivalent on the user scores when I looked at it earlier. So it seems like opinions have kind of recovered. But I remember it's one of those games that at the time, like, just between its player reception and all of the difficulties that it had coming to market, like, it was in bargain bins within 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a shame because it had great music. It was a fun story full of great characters. I'm just disappointed that it kind of ended up going the way that it did.
Well, to be fair, James, it kind of deserved the animosity, in my opinion, even though I also liked the game because of, one, you were sold a bill of goods. Yeah,
admittedly, there was no effort made by the publisher, and I place this squarely in the feet of the publisher because, like, this has always been Double Fine's thing. They always make quirky, unexpected combinations between genre and gameplay. I think that I believe it was EA ended up finally doing the publishing on it.
It was THQ, I believe.
Was it? I think it was.
I can double check that. I'm almost positive it was THQ.
But I think they ended up screwing the pooch on marketing because it was their job to tell us what kind of game it was.
I remember distinctly came with a magazine, but it was a demo disc with a demo for this game.
Which was the opening combat sequence.
Right, which is it has nothing to do with the gameplay for the rest of the game.
No, it's part of that first 2 hours where you're not doing RTSing.
Yeah.
It's where it comes off as being a third-person character adventure game.
And I would have loved it if it had been that the whole time. And it could have been.
It still would have been great, but
It could have been that the whole time.
It could have
but
been.
It wasn't. And then, well, also, I think that a lot of the criticism for people who actually played it was that the last I don't know, 30 minutes of the game should have been the last third of the game, that they really ran out of money and didn't actually finish the game in a satisfying manner.
Yeah, and I think that was again down to a lot of the trouble that the game had just getting to market, you know.
Nate, did you ever play this one?
I actually started it on the PC a long time ago, but never got more than a couple hours into it.
Yeah.
You ought to give it a try. It is really fun.
Yeah, the characters and the writing is all really enjoyable, and it is pretty cool to see the different voice actors that they get to play the characters in the game.
Yeah. So it was supposed to be published by Vivendi
originally,
but
yes.
After Vivendi merged with Activision decided to drop the game, and it was later picked up by EA.
Yeah, it was EA.
And then Activision and Double Fine sued each other.
Of course.
Yeah, well,
they
Activision
did.
came out and said, no, you don't get to publish that game. And Double Fine's like, fucking, you said you didn't want it. We're like, yeah, but we didn't say you could publish it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that poor game was really a
Look, between
tragedy.
that and his experience with Psychonauts, that's pretty much the reason why Tim Schafer's gone to making smaller, kind of more indie-styled games as Double Fine. That's pretty much the reason why Double Fine makes the smaller, more contained experiences that it does today. Its two experiences at making a AAA game had major issues with publication.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they consistently get fucked over by their publisher.
Yeah,
I believe it was Majesco who published Psychonauts. Majesco also published another game that I was going to talk about today.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Advent Rising.
Oh, okay. I didn't have experience with that one.
What? Oh, I loved that game. Yeah, it was great. The
soundtrack.
That's not the final one I'm going to talk about, but I remember Majesco kind of screwed the pooch on that one too.
Majesco didn't last too much longer after Psychonauts came out, did they?
No, they didn't.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that time frame, like the PlayStation 2, early era where those kinds of games were coming out, it wasn't as codified as it is now. I feel like there wasn't like the expectation of the same thing coming out every year. People were experimenting more, but the big publishers were also like really gun shy about, pushing a new property forward. So I feel like we heard that story over and over again that, that
defined last generation. Like, just an unwillingness to experiment was basically the song of the 7th generation. But the 6th generation before it, it was kind of the waning days of the Wild West that we saw with the PlayStation 1.
Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like a lot of those developers, like we saw those games that just didn't get the press that they needed, that didn't push through I don't know. Western developers were struggling, I felt like, in the early 2000s. Maybe I just have a bad impression of it because a lot of the games that I was playing were that way, but I don't know. I just remember the EA killing games and, it was all just Duke Nukem Forever all through the early 2000s. It was like, we're going to make this, we're making this, we're not making this. I felt like that happened a lot.
No, I think that a lot of that is also just simple communication, because it's still, lots of games getting made and being canceled all the time. That's still going on. It's just I don't think it's being communicated to us as much as it used to be.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah, not after incidents like the process going on with StarCraft Ghost.
Oh, yeah. StarCraft Ghost was a high-profile one that was canceled.
Yeah.
And then...
Sounded like it might have been amazing.
Yep. And then somehow in StarCraft 2, after all the expansions of StarCraft 2 were released, they ended up releasing a not necessarily the same thing that Ghost would have been, but like they released like a covert ops mission pack. Yeah. So Blizzard's weird.
Yeah.
But,
I have to make a
Yeah,
correction.
sure is.
It's not that Hammerwatch 2 came out. We're still waiting for that, but a big update to the game has come out.
Okay, all right. So I have the ability to play this already.
Yeah, which is good.
Wow.
It's like it's $10 on Steam right now, but it looks like it comes with that big update. So we may have to hop in and give it a try sometime.
Cool.
See if the matchmaking is improved. It was so bad before. Ugh. It's like trying to matchmake back in the Diablo days. Maybe that was on purpose. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know about Brutal Legend, James. I feel like that's a game that I really enjoyed at the time, but I don't know if I've never seen anybody go back and play it again.
I've wanted to. There's just always been other things that I was playing. I've actually bought it a couple times with the intention of going back and replaying it again.
Yeah. I have it on my Steam library, but I've never tried to play it on Steam. I don't know.
It was a best intentions thing.
Yep. Soundtrack was cool.
Yeah. Yeah, soundtrack was fucking great.
Yep, pretty cool. Well, you ate up my last one when you started talking about the Dark Alliance games, so can I just lament really quick that they never made the third one? I'm very sad about that, because the second game definitely ends on a cliffhanger, but evidently people didn't like it enough for them to make the third one.
Yeah?
So, yeah. So the Baldur's Gate story is just like every other fantasy RPG that we've ever participated in. It just petered out, and then people stopped playing it, and we'll never know what happens to those characters.
Well, that's what happens.
Yeah, it sucks. It sucks. It hurts me. Because that was, a game I was very invested in, and I wanted to know what happened next. Oh well.
I didn't realize there was a contiguous story between the two Dark Alliance games.
Oh yeah, in the first game you play as a party, and in the second game you rescue that party. And then they tell you, they're like, go through that portal, then you can defeat go and defeat the thing, and you go through the portal and the game's over. And then the next one never came out. So yeah. Baldur's Gate, Dark Alliance 2.
There you go.
We barely knew ye.
I knew you very well, and I was sad that you were gone. I wanted to know what happened next, but that's okay. So, Nate, what was your last one?
Alpha Protocol.
Yeah, that was a fun game, but yeah, it kind of flew under the radar, didn't it?
Yeah, it definitely did not do well when it came out, but it's kind of achieved a bit of a cult following in the years after.
Which one is this? Remind me which one is this, because I feel like I might be mixing it up with like 2 or 3 other games.
So this was...
Imagine Mass Effect, except James Bond.
Yeah, it was like a modern spy story, and it was done by Obsidian.
Yeah.
Okay.
Except it was also a very Sega-feeling game, as I recall.
It was also a Sega-published game.
Okay.
And that's why it was so Sega-ass feeling.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was produced, or it was developed by Obsidian, published by Sega, and basically you're this like super spy working for this, this super off the books Black Ops agency, which is called Alpha Protocol. And you go, you like go on this mission, and in your first mission, they basically you like get the intel that you need, and then they bomb the place that you were at, hoping to kill you too. So you get like Left 4 Dead, and not the game.
You go rogue.
Yeah, and so you go rogue, and so there's it had a really cool dialogue system where it would where a lot of the conversations were timed. So you would you would have there would be like a meter, counting down, and if you didn't respond to what somebody said in that time, you would just say nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And so
just stare at them.
Yeah, there were. I know there were a couple of like key choices you would make, and those were actually the ones where it like let you think, and you could decide. But most of them were like most of the decisions you had to make within a few seconds. You had to read all your options and then choose what you wanted to say.
Yeah.
And there were there's different factions that are vying for control, including there were different characters as well that you would get different relationships with. So it was very much like an Obsidian or a BioWare game in that respect. And except it was just a modern spy story, and you had cool spy gadgets, and you leveled up in various skill trees, including stealth and stuff like stealth takedowns, pistols, assault rifles. The hacking was pretty cool.
The hacking I had an issue with the first time I played it. This is one of those games that I bounced off of once and then went back and tried again and absolutely fell in love with. The first time I tried to play it, I believe I was playing it with mouse and keyboard, because I was playing it on the PC. I'd gotten it on Steam for like $30 2 months after it came out. And I really gave it a shot with the mouse and keyboard, and the hacking is just so obtuse with those controls. It was awful, and I couldn't do anything right, and I was like, okay, screw this game, I'm done. And it was probably you and a couple of other guys that ended up talking me back into picking it up again. I tried it with the controller, and that
so
was
much better. Yeah,
yeah, so much better.
But oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say I think I vaguely remember you playing this, James.
Yeah, it was a thing that it held my attention for a solid 2 weeks until I beat it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so one of the big storylines is there's this conspiracy, and it's basically like the bad guys end up being like, it's not like Russians or terrorists or whatever. It's the corporate interests that are like behind the like the government contracts for all the technology and weapons that Alpha Protocol uses. And there's various characters. I don't remember if there were actually like romance options. James, do you remember?
Yeah, there were romance options. I think I got one of them killed.
Yes.
But yeah.
Okay, I couldn't remember if it was romance or not, but yes, there was a character.
And also you can get straight up molested at the end of the game.
Really?
The Russian lady.
Oh, right. Was that the one who didn't talk?
No, that was the cute little mute girl. She wasn't a romance option.
Okay.
No, it was the big bulky Russian lady that takes a shine to you because you're aggressive. So at some point in the game, if you're pinned down and if you play your cards right, she will molest you. Like straight up, like non-consensual, just takes her pants off, climbs on top of you.
Wow.
Yikes.
Okay then. So anyway, I let my potential romance option die. Like, they had kidnapped her and everything, and I let her die to run after the bad guy. And so, and the bad guy in this case basically ran a super evil, super profitable defense company. And so I ran after him, and it gives you the option, you can let him go or whatever, and I put a fucking bullet in his head.
This all sounds right up your alley.
Yeah, so as somebody who does not generally play games that take place in the modern era, just because I don't find them as interesting, I ended up really liking this one. And so yeah, I shot that guy right through the eye, if I remember correctly. So, and then what's that?
I think I did too, actually.
Yep. Yeah, and that's when your potential romance option dies. That's when mine died, anyways. It was sad. She was great, but I had to kill this guy. He was evil.
The first girl?
I think so.
Yeah, she died like midway through my game.
Okay.
Something happened and she died.
I remember earlier in the game I had let a bad guy get away so I could save her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it gave you a lot of like options like that, and there were options you made midway through the game that came back to bite you in the ass later on.
Yeah, definitely.
But
it was really good about player choice.
It was, yeah, and that's one of the reasons I really liked it. And it definitely had it definitely had like clunky controls, and one of the big criticisms was the shooting wasn't accurate. So because the shooting was all stat based rather than like player skill based. So people didn't like that, and that was, I remember that being one of the common criticisms, which I didn't really get because, well, yeah, it's an RPG. But it's a game that's become more popular, I think, as people have played it over the years since its release. It's become a much more it's become regarded in a better light. At the time, however, it didn't get great reviews. It sits at 72 on Metacritic.
Yeah, it wasn't very favorably received, and I know that was another one that made it to the bargain basement pretty quickly. Like I said, that was one that I got for half off on Steam a mere 2 months afterwards. That was the first time that I really became aware of how deep the price cuts could go on Steam.
Yeah, so I would definitely recommend it. I mean, I have no idea how it holds up today. I played it like 6 years ago, but
yeah.
But it was definitely great. It was well, like I said, not the thing that I would normally play, but once I played it, I just fell in love with it, and it was great. I'm also a really big Obsidian fan, so
they do good stuff sometimes.
They always do good stuff. The reports of bugs in their games are greatly overstated.
Well, yeah, probably. They are a studio that is deeply beloved by their fans and kind of looked at with a raised eyebrow by everyone else. A lot like most of my favorite studios.
I don't have any favorite studios. I don't have gaming opinions.
You used to have a favorite studio.
Did I?
Yeah, you didn't realize it, but you would buy every single one of their games and love them.
Which would that be?
Twisted Pixel. They put out a lot of stuff on the 360. They were one of the 360's first arcade darlings.
Yeah?
You bought their first game on the market, The Maw.
Oh, I did like that game. What other games did they put out?
Explosion Man and Miss Explosion Man and The Gunstringer and a couple of other games.
Yeah, I enjoyed their stuff.
Are they still around?
They ended up... I assume that they're still putting out stuff on the Xbox One. They bought their way out from under Microsoft, and I just kind of stopped hearing about them.
Explosion Man was a fun game.
Explosion Man was a fun game, but it had 99 levels, and no game needs 99 levels.
Oh, but it had a fun donut song if you picked up the fat guy.
Yeah, it was great.
That was delightful.
I loved the donut song.
Me too.
I loved the donut song so much.
Yep. Explosion Man was a better game, but it had more annoying sound design.
Yeah, probably, but it also had a Predator reference within the first, 10 levels.
Yeah. No, it was a good game. It's just the first one was less annoying sound-wise.
And by the time that Explosion Man 2 had come out, I had already played so much of Explosion Man 1 that, I got, probably 20 levels in to the second game and said, no, I think I've done enough of this. I'm good.
Yeah, it's the same mechanic over and over again. I think that would have been a really good mobile game. That's the kind of thing that I could see your dad getting 600 levels deep into. You know what I mean?
Now, that game had really precise controls, and you had to be really good at the game to progress past a certain point.
Yeah, but I think that if they had made it into a mobile game, that it would be the kind of game that a person who could get 600 levels deep in Candy Crush would get deeply into.
Is your dad at level 600 in Candy Crush, James?
I think he's higher than that.
Jesus.
When I talked to him at Christmas, he said he was at like level 686 or something like that. So
Does he spend money on it?
no.
Nope.
Wow.
Well, he's still
Yeah,
playing the
he's-
original Candy Crush too, so
Yep.
I can't with that. I'm
No,
glad
he's just,
nobody
that's
was
how
like
he is.
I'm glad no one was like, "Oh, I really liked Farmville," or I'm glad nobody came up with one of those.
No, sorry.
Some of those browser games are kind of fun, but like every time I see notifications on games on Facebook nowadays, I'm like, who let my grandma onto Facebook?
Like, who the hell is still playing this?
I know, like, and you're posting it to Facebook? Guys! Then
No, the last browser game that I got at all into was that game where you hit the poor guy with the bike and try to see how far you can send him flying.
Was that
Love
sort of
that
like,
game.
what was that game called? Nanica?
And Nanica Crash. It was
Nanica
based on
Crash.
some anime that I don't know if it ever made it over to the States.
Yeah,
but
it was not
it was a lot of fun.
important. It was just a kick this dude as far as you can kick him.
Yeah, and then like the sprite of him flying through the air is him all twisted and mangled from the crash. It
Yeah.
was great. It's a fun game.
I spent a long time playing stupid Cookie Clicker. Like, way too much time.
Cookie
And
Clicker
Agario.
was something else.
Yeah. What was the weird one? I can't remember what the weird one was that I played. It was a clicker game, but it was something strange. Well, James was telling me the other day that I need to finish Frog Fractions. And I still have
Yes.
not done this thing.
Yes, you do.
He was telling me the same
tempted.
thing.
I'm really tempted to see if I can sit my wife down in front of the computer and start recording her playing through Frog Fractions, telling her nothing.
Yeah.
Just
She-
to see what happens.
She's gonna see the math at the front of the game and be like, no, thank you. I have better things to do.
force her through it. I will force her through it.
That sort of was my experience. I'm like, okay, I got lasers now. This is still just a clicker game. So I didn't get that far into it. I didn't understand all the hype. I still don't. I'm in the dark.
I didn't
It's alright.
get
I'm glad
past
that you
the
didn't spoil yourself on it.
Well, yeah,
What was that?
spoilers.
What?
I'm glad that you didn't spoil yourself on it.
No, not yet. Once I found out about Frog Fractions 2 and how long the game has been out and nobody discovered that it existed, I was like, all right, I see you. You guys are pretty funny. I like this. But I didn't look up anything about it because I felt like if I wanted to have that experience, I wanted to keep the experience pure.
Well, Frog Fractions 2, I don't know if I'm going to get into it. Like, the thing that was so magical about Frog Fractions was that it was just such a complete surprise. You know, you would have friends who would come up to you and say, just Frog Fractions. And I'd be like, what? And they'd be, Frog Fractions, just keep that in mind. Oh, okay. Fucking weirdo. All right.
I never had friends like that, but no, I think the story of that is really interesting though. The fact that it was out there and like it just took forever for people to uncover it. I don't know. That kind of crap is interesting to me. Been following a lot of those dumb, like, not dumb, that's not fair, that's not nice. Those games on the internet kind of thing with codes and stuff. So, I don't know. Stuff's cool. People are creative. Where am I going with this? I don't know. I think we're done. Are we done today?
I think we're done.
I think we're done.
All right.
Rocket Punch Radio is a robot giant podcast force fighting designed to beat back the evil Lord Ennui and his army of bot dreads. You can join the
That's not
Rocket
right.
Punch Corps by reviewing us wherever you listen to podcasts. And please, 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 we would love to have your iTunes reviews. Always support your favorite podcast with the reviews.
Us
you can
too.
also check us out.
Your favorites and
on-
us.
Yes, that as well. Check us out on rocketpunchradio.com or on the Grown Ass Geeks Facebook group. Our theme song was composed and recorded by Brent Black at brentblacktunes.com. This podcast was produced by Samantha, and our artwork was created by Jay at Audio Visuals. You can find us on Twitter at Rocket Punch Radio, and also on YouTube, where we post Let's Plays, podcast episodes, and other cool stuff. Guys, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on PlayStation and on Twitter at Blade of Creation.
You can find me weeping under my computer desk, or on Twitter at the Kababylon. And also thank you to James, because he's editing this one this week because I'm trying to move.
I did say I'd do that.
You did say you'd do that. Now I have you on the record of saying it.
To be fair, he's not on the record
me.
until he actually does it.
I guess you could edit this out, but then you'd be editing the podcast. So I don't care.
She got you there, James.
No, yes, she absolutely does. Okay. You can find me at jpatrickallen.com, where you can find all kinds of information about my books, as well as weekly blogs and articles about things of interest to me and to my books. You can find me on Twitter at jpatrickauthor, and you can find my books at Amazon.com. Right now we have just the first book of the Dead West series called West of Pale, and also you can find my short story, award-winning short story, Dragonfly Shadow, in the first volume of the Dragon Lord's Library. And hopefully soon we will have the second of the Dead West books out for you. So I think that does it for everyone.
James, do we want to talk about what's coming up for the podcast?
Well, I know we have March of the Mecha coming out. Part 2, the sequel, The Marching. And that will be beginning March the 7th. We're going to have a bunch of cool stuff for you there, including some Let's Plays, some reviews. I've got some things that I'm going to try and talk some people into doing with me. As well, we're also going to try to have some interviews ready to go for you when that goes down.
Also, Nate watches Evangelion Part 2.
Yeah, oh, you're going to do that, are you?
Yes.
All right. So, I guess I need to watch the rest of those movies. What's out, now that the third one's out?
One a year. It's in my contract. One anime a year.
Yeah.
I didn't write that contract, but I'll take it.
That's good.
Too good to be true.
This is a deal we can't pass up. Okay, I have to go. Good night.